Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fiercely Spiritual podcast. I'm your host, Sandra Ray. I'm an author, healer, spiritual teacher, and speaker. And I'm so delighted you've joined us today for this episode because we're talking about a topic that is really important and it's something that most of us don't realize. So, the topic is that the breakdown is the breakthrough. So let me explain what this means, because most of us go through all our lives thinking that a breakdown is a breakdown and it's a bad thing and that it should be avoided at all costs, when in reality, it's something completely different. Most of the time, it's something completely different. So the breakdown is that point that you reach where you feel like giving up, where you feel like you're going to die, where you feel like you've just done everything that you can and you can't possibly do anymore. You feel like you're failing and you don't realize that that's the point at which you're about to break through to the next level. So let me give you an example of this. I remember when I was pregnant and I was attending hypnobirthing classes. And during classes, she was saying that you go through all these phases of labor, and she explained about the first phase and the second phase and the third phase. But something that struck me that was really interesting was towards the last phase. She said that what happens is you'll reach a point where you'll feel like giving up. And that's the point where usually the baby is about to be born. Now, I remember when I was going through labor then, this was my first child, and I was experiencing all of these stages, going through the stages. And because I was in the moment, I forgot that she mentioned that you reach that point where you feel like giving up. And I reached that point. I reached that point where I thought, I don't know if I can do this any longer. I don't know if I can keep going. Maybe it was the wrong decision not to opt for pain medication. Maybe I'll need to just have some because I don't know if I can go any further. But luckily, the midwife who was working with me, she was really astute. And when I reached that point where I was like, oh, I just don't know if I can do this anymore, she's like, okay, let me check where you're at. And of course, she's like, yeah, the baby is about to be born. And, everything is going according to plan. So it was like literally probably half an hour later that the baby arrived. And something similar happened to me recently where I was experiencing some neck pain, and the cause was the occipital nerve, which runs up from the back into the neck and it runs up into the head, into the scalp. And I was experiencing pain from this, but I didn't know what it was. And it was like the pain was radiating into my neck, into my head, and going different places. It was really unusual. And I was wondering, like, what is going on here? And I remember going to bed that night and thinking, well, what if this is something like worse than just neck pain? What if this is some chronic illness? And those moments where you're in bed and everything just seems amplified, all the fears seem amplified, and every thought that you've ever had of anything negative just comes up. And I was lying there and I was like, so what am I going to do? And all that I could do was just hand it over to the universe, hand it over to God and the angels. I was like, look, I'm lying here. There's not really much I can do. I know deep in my heart, I knew that it wasn't as severe as my ego was telling me. My ego was searching for the worst case scenario. And somewhere deep within, I knew that that wasn't the case. But there was still that very real fear where I felt like I could possibly die. And, if I just allow this to be, without doing anything about it. So I decided just to hand it all over and to release control, just to release and say, okay, universe, you know better than me. You deal with this. I'm handing it all over to you. And of course, that was the breakthrough to reach that point where I just totally and completely released control, because I have a tendency to try and control things myself. I'm getting much better at it, but it's something that I've been working on for a long time. And I just released control completely. And that was the glass ceiling. That was the point I had to break through, where I just have to completely trust in the universe and just trust and hand everything over and trust that everything will be okay. And of course, since then, the pain went away, everything was fine. And it was just that little, I don't want to say test, but that moment that I needed in order just to completely trust the universe and to hand everything over. So instead of reaching that point and thinking, if you have a similar situation where you're experiencing that breakdown and thinking my life is ending, or I can't go on, or this is just too much, then choose to celebrate, because you are about to break through that glass ceiling. You are about to break through to a new level that you haven't experienced before. And of course, that's scary. If you've ever gone traveling and you've visited new places. I remember when I was younger, I went to Australia. A few of my friends were traveling around Australia at the time, and I traveled there on my own. And I remember I spent the first night there on my own before they arrived to meet me. And I remember feeling really insecure because I was in this new place, this new environment. I hadn't been here before. And the time difference was so great. I'd never experienced such a time difference before. And I remember at one point, the clock on my phone had still been set to the time in Ireland. And I remember one point, I went for a nap and then I looked at my phone. And it was a completely different time than I was thinking it was. And I remember feeling so confused and disorientated. Of course, it was just my phone. The natural local timing had kicked in, because your phone just gets in line with the local timing. But I remember thinking, have I slept for this long? And just being so disorientated. And of course, the jet lag and everything else didn't help. So it's a little bit like that. When you reach that new level, you're breaking through that glass ceiling and you're reaching to a new place that you haven't experienced before, a new level of freedom, a new level of, as I said, just letting go and handing things over to the universe, or a new level of whatever it is you need. That can be a bit scary because you haven't experienced that before. You haven't been there before. So it can feel a bit scary at first. But then you suddenly realize, as I did when I was in Australia, oh, this place is kind of cool. I really like it here. It's actually pretty fun, and you get to enjoy it. So when you break through, when you get over that initial insecurity and thinking, what's going on? You suddenly realize, oh, this place is actually really cool. I've broken through my barriers, my limitations that I've created, and I've broken through to something great. So go out there, break some glass ceilings, and enjoy your life. I will see you next week. Bye-bye.